night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child.
When flying, there is only one. Check out travel span.
This is Rob Binns, the former chairman and CEO of North American Airlines. I've now partnered with TravelSpan for flights to Guyana and Trinidad. Please support these non-stop flights by calling TravelSpan at 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437 or at travelspan.com.
Child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace.
Welcome to Tots and Teens in Focus. I'm your host, Patricia Trim. I have a special guest in the studio today with me, and she is no other than Dr. Zulena Blair. Dr. Blair is a professor at John Jay College. She is here to talk about youths of the community and how can the community help our youths. Our main focus is education. You must be educated at all times. Youths without education, as they say, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. So Dr. Blair will be telling us more about education and what can youths be focused on to make good grades in their school. Dr. Blair, welcome to Tots and Teens in Focus. Thank you for being here with us and having this moment with us in to share your views and your concerns of youths of the community. Welcome once again.
Thank you, Ms. Trim. Thank you for having me, and I'm delighted to be here. Let me start out by saying that we are now embarking on a new age in education where that I'm sure you've heard this term before, that it is now a global village, and we have to make our children as competitive as possible. And the way to do that, and the Department of Education has begun already to do that, is through a rigorous curriculum with their Common Core standards. It is not necessarily a new curriculum. It is something that is meant to keep our children focused so that they can stay on par. But let me first say that we need a curricular component, but we need an extracurricular component in our community as well. And in order to do that, first the community has to collaborate with the educational institutions, and the educational institutions have to collaborate with our community. So our community has to show our students as much love as possible and lend themselves an open arm to our students, because it takes a village to raise a child. And let's begin by talking about K through 12. What do we need? We have to set rigorous standards as our children go up from K through 12, because we know that college, the level that I teach at, is not an option. Let me say that again, college is not an option. And so what we have done is set outcomes-based standards on what students need to learn from their to get into their first year of college, and what they need to know in the 12th grade, 11th grade, 10th grade, and work its way on back. And in doing so, teachers should come from the community. I firmly believe that teachers should come from the community. The community-based organization should have a hand in our children's education. So the libraries, the arts programs, the museums, all of these entities should have a hand in our kids' programs as they go through their K through 12 education. Administrators and paraprofessionals and student aides, as many of these that we can get from the community as possible, including our parent coordinators, should come from the surrounding community because they know our children. They will lend the love that our children needs to succeed. And most of the time, children needs a mentor. And we should do this. The reason why some of our loans are forgiven, our student debt is forgiven, is so that we can be mentors, so that we can go back and give back to our communities, so that we can be mentors to our students and bring them up the right way. Each one teach one. That saying is still valid and is still in full force, and we should make it be in full effect.
Dr. Blair, you give it all out to the parents, to the teachers, to the community, to know that it's important that it takes a village to raise a child, and every hand make a difference in the community. Now, Dr. Blair, I know that you were not just brought up like that. You had to have some kind of parental guidance and some kind of cultural guidance. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I have lived in a single parent home. My mother was a nurse's aide, and my father lives in Jamaica, always lived in Jamaica, but he is also a professor at the University of the West Indies, and was also an engineer for formerly Air Jamaica Airlines. And so his primary focus was, what were your grades like this semester? Even if he couldn't physically see my report card, he knew that there's a certain amount of hours that I had to spend on homework, and he made sure that he stayed in touch with my mother consistently to make sure every night I was reading a book. Every weekend I had a list of vocabulary words. Every Tuesday I was reading the Science Times to get a list of vocabulary words from the Science Times. And he knew when all the standardized tests were given, the SATs, the pre-SATs, and college essays and other college exams were given so that I could stay on schedule. What children need nowadays are time management, and that's one of the things that my parents enforced was time management. The second thing they enforced was get used to looking words up. Children hate to pick up that dictionary and look in the dictionary because it's time consuming. But these days we have computers, we could just look it up right on the thesaurus and look for synonyms to words and build our vocabulary that way. The third thing that my parents enforced was extracurricular activities. I ran track all through high school and in college, so that maintained focus. I had a separate life coach in my life. I had my track and field coach, and she was always adamant about our grades because we couldn't play sports if our grades weren't well. So we had that type of counseling amongst us.
That was super. But you know, in our community today, we have a lot of disadvantage. We have a lot of crimes and gangs that really take away the interest of the youths going to school, the styles and the fashion. How would you, what advice would you encourage young people, you know, because some of them feel they have to be in the style and fashion, they have to be with the gangs, or they have to be at the street corner. What would be your what would be your input in saying something to youths to get them back in track?
Okay, well, I would say this. There's two words that come to mind, followership and leadership. And so leadership doesn't necessarily mean that you always have to be the leader of the organization. It just means that you take initiative to help an organization. And you want to always help a good cause. You always want to know what's needed in your community. This is why collaborating with your community is so effective, and how to learn civically. You need to know that antisocial behavior has no place in the community, and so you should not contribute to antisocial behavior such as gangs. If you are lacking family and you need family, look to a friend. Look to the guidance counselor and consider some outlets. Start talking to people more. Start confiding in people more, because people genuinely care about children and people genuinely want to help. So antisocial behavior has no place. Build yourself up individually. This way you can give back. Remember where you're going, but be humble and remember where you came from. I would say, I would just specifically quote JFK's saying, ask not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for the country. It's the same thing. Ask not what the community can do for you, but what you can do for the community. And if you are contributing to crime, to violence, to any of these antisocial behavior that makes you feel cool, or you think make you feel cool, just look at it this way. The person that gets hurt could be your mother, could be your father, could be your sister, or could be your brother, or could be another significant other, another loved one. And so would you want that pain inflicted on you the same way that you are inflicting this pain on others? So I will reiterate, antisocial behavior has no place in our community. We want a good place to live in, we want a good home, and this way we can all aspire to be the children and the people that we want to be.
Dr. Blair, I know you're talking about the education is important, but you know, back in the Caribbean, I don't know if you had that experience back in the Caribbean country or in other countries, spelling was something very important. We had to do dictation, we had to do spelling, we had to do math, we had to do tables, which was very good because it gives me that foundation on today that, you know, you had to spell in syllables, if you don't want to be, you had to play, they used to call it take down, you don't want to get the end of the line because everybody will know that you're a dunce. My experience with children coming to the program, I have some very hard experience with children. You know, you give them something to read or to write, and their writing is very bad. They learn to see words and spell it, but they don't have it within them to spell that same word that you will ask them to spell. What is the problem with that? Because it's just like whatever they see, they write. Or they sit and they call, but to retain it, to remember it, and to write it out in a sentence or so, it's very hard. And you find that the work that the children are doing in school, parents have to sit to the table to do it for them. Is it the work too much, or is it the work the children are not learning enough with the type of curriculum that they have in the school?
That's a good question, and I will say this. A lot of parents and even a lot of teachers have not yet mastered the different aspects of learning or how students learn how to learn. And children have different ways of learning. Some can do the traditional writing things down as they hear them, as the teacher is lecturing. Some students are auditory learners, meaning that they have to listen to things. They have to have questions read to them out loud. And some students are visual learners, meaning they may need to do flow charts as they're writing information in order to get the information down. So the first thing is that they need to learn their learning styles and figure out the best way that they can comprehend information. The second thing is, and this is why K, and that's why it's called K through 12, and that's why our mayor-elect wants to have universal pre-K through 12, because children develop a love of reading and learning from early on. By the time they're in their second and third grade, and when they're taking these standardized exams in the third grade, it's difficult to then get them to love to read. They should be learning to love to do these different things, reading and math, in the early grades. The earlier the better. So pre-K, kindergarten, the earlier they learn to love school and appreciate learning, the faster they will learn and the more committed they will be to their education.
You know what I find that with the schools, the teacher actually tell the children what the word is. In our days, you had to tell the teacher what the word is because you had to spell it, and you know you had to spell it in syllables, you know. But this is what is happening, and you find that there's a lot of children, because they have dropouts, because they're not getting to learn effectively. They decided not to go to school. They find other things to gain their attention. How can the school, or as you say, the mayor-elect, how can the authorities, the administration, bring that focus of giving them the reading, the purpose that they should be reading from a very tender age, and not the teacher just reading the words, and the chair memorizes. You say, this is apple, and and you point to the words they know that word, but you ask them to spell it, they do not know to spell it?
The first thing is the schools in different communities need the resources that are available through different Title I programs to bring in the type of curriculum and professional development that the teachers need to cater to different cultural backgrounds. That is an important task ahead of us. We know that communities spend different amount of resources depending on the income levels and the median wages in different communities. And so, for example, schools on the Upper West Side spend maybe 8 times more than a school in Brownsville or in Central Brooklyn in general. And what that does is contribute to a teacher's professional development. And professional development should be gotten by way of ethnicity, by way of the grade level, by way of the teacher's expertise. And so these things are real conversations that the DOE and other levels of government have to have when this new mayor comes in, because we do need tests, but we don't need to just teach to the test. And that's what we've been having, that we've been teaching to the test. The second thing is we need to, again, go back to differentiated standards of learning. And so a classroom should not just be filled with just students below average, students, another class of students of average, and another class with students above average. We have to mix people up, because the best way students learn is from their peers. And so when you pair a student with another student, one may be above average, one may be just average, but they're learning from one another and they get to catch up and keep pace with one another. One of the things that we learn in college at the collegiate level is that students come from all walks of life, right? And so there are different pre-existing conditions, pre-collegial standards that students had to live up to. Some students came from foster homes but made it to college. Some students came from 2-parent families and they were taught that they had no other choice but to go to college. And some students just wound it up in college by faith. And so, yes, these students all sit in the same classroom together and learn from one another. We could trickle this back down through the grade school levels, because in the grade school levels, luckily, we have students from similar backgrounds depending on the neighborhoods and the location that the school is in. And so similarly, though, students are still able to feel one another out and learn from each other. Once one student sees someone doing well in a particular area, they want to follow and mimic that behavior. So I advise one to set up real peer-influenced classroom. That's one way to do it. And they already started doing with differentiated instruction. The second thing we have to deal with is we have what we call dual language learners. It's not just Spanish, it's not just French, it's not just Creole, it's also Patois, right? It's all these different language. I recommend that we do not ostracize these students anymore and put them in this disadvantaged category, because to master 2 languages is an effective tool, and it goes with you for life once you get it, right? So parents should advocate that these students are dual language learners and that they are able to communicate effectively in both languages. And so the more that we have this equality and level of thinking, equality of results thinking, the better off our school system will be. And finally, the teachers. Parents should become involved in the professional development activities of teachers. Why do I say that? You said a minute ago that parents are at the table doing homework for their students. So they know more about the shortcomings of their students at home, and they can help the teacher figure out a real plan for these students. And nothing technical, but real conversations that they can bring to the table. So I think that we should put parents more involved in our children's education.
That is so true, Dr. Blair, because as we have a series that's going on, parenting belongs to the parents and not to the system. Because if the parents don't have the right opportunity to take care or discipline their children, from a very tender age. You can't discipline them when they meet 13, 14. They're already out of order. And that is the whole thing that is breaking down the society. Parents not having control to take control over their children, because teachers, if a child may have a little bruise because you give them a little slap, the teacher will call in the social worker will take away that child. But that same child will grow up and the police will brutalize that child. And nobody is saying anything about that brutalization. So should it be that the parents, the police or the law enforcement have right to brutalize the children, or the parents should take control from a child when they're very small and discipline them?
Well, you know, a lot of things begin in the home, and that's why we have programs nowadays such as parent academies or family engagement, family and community engagement in the DOE, and things of that nature. So here is what I'll say to that. Naturally, we expect our homes and our home community to be the big brother and the disciplinary factors in our lives. But there are different types of societies within the society that we live in. We have the state society, which is government. We have our private family, which is our homes. And we have the civil society, which is where education falls in. And so once our private family fails at disciplining us, bringing us up in this moral or ethical way, whose responsibility is it? It becomes the civil societies before it becomes the state societies, because they're in the middle. You know, this is where, again, it takes the village to raise a child. And so I think education, departments of education, not just in New York, but all over, should really look into instilling ethics in the curriculum. I think that's where society can pick up the slack. Students spend the majority of their day in school. And so we can start out very small with it just being an elective, but students really need, because sometimes parents don't know as society moves along what's even, you know, ethically or morally correct anymore. Some people think that hitting your child is still good discipline, right? And some people say, no, that's not the way to do it. And so as, you know, we get older, we hear different concepts and different theories of how to do things, but society always has a grip on it. The civil society, at least, always has a grip on it. So why not install ethics in the curriculum? In fact, that would be the main difference. The main difference between Catholic schools and public schools has been religion. And so what's a comparable aspect? Ethics, learning ethics in the curriculum.
As they say, the Bible says, spare not the rod and spoil the child. So sometimes our society look like we're sparing the rod and spoil the child, but then in the end, the child have to suffer, the parents suffer, the family suffer, because one bad apple will spoil the whole bunch. Dr. Blair, thank you very much for being on our show. And I would like you to, what would be your advice to the community to encourage them, come out and support our youths?
I would say go to find out what's going on in your community through BAM, through BRIC, through BCAT. Find out what's going on. Stay in touch with your elected officials, with your block associations, with your community boards. That's the way to stay connected. Children follow what their parents do and what they see. They then want to become connected and want to contribute to society. And go to as many parent-teacher association meeting as possible. The DOE, New York City, DOE has a parent academy. If you're confused about some things, about parent-teacher conference, etc., they have workshops to help you communicate better with the DOE community. So I think that works for our youths today.
Thank you, Dr. Blair. And just to let everyone know that Dr. Blair is our honoree, one of our humanitarian youth educator for Tots and Teens 2013. Thank you very much for accepting our awards, and thank you very much for being here on our show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Great.
That was Tots and Teens in Focus with Patricia Trim and Dr. Zelena Blair, the professor from John Jay College. Dr. Blair has given us some information, very good information, about youths of the community and how can the community help our youth in education, because education is important. Without education, it's a loss, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And so she has given her views, and I do hope that parents, if they need to have more information on Dr. Blair theory of education, they can make contact with Tots and Teens in Focus at Brooklyn Public Network, and you will be able to get more information. And you could even have her to come and give some talk to your youths at the schools or non-profit organization. There she's a very good, important instructor, director, whatever you may call it. She knows what she's saying and she knows how to bring it over. So that was Tots and Teens in Focus once again with Dr. Zelena Blair, professor of the John Jay College. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We good?
When flying, there is only one. Check out travel span.
This is Rob Binns, the former chairman and CEO of North American Airlines. I've now partnered with TravelSpan for flights to Guyana and Trinidad. Please support these non-stop flights by calling TravelSpan at 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437 or at travelspan.com.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child. Holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sight, glorious streams from heaven afar, heavenly hosts sing Alleluia. Christ the Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born.